Introduction. The 5 silent forces shaping human health. The human body is a remarkable system. It works without pause, without hesitation, without rest. Every cell follows its own instructions. Every organ moves in its own rhythm. Every system maintains a balance so precise that we rarely notice how fragile it truly is. Yet there are forces in the world that quietly challenge this balance. They do not arrive with noise. They do not strike suddenly. They do not warn us in advance. They build slowly, year after year, until one day they become too powerful to ignore. Heart disease, cancer, respiratory illness, metabolic disruption, infections that have followed humanity since the beginning of civilization. These are the 5 great forces shaping modern human health. 5 stories unfolding not somewhere far away, but here, within our bodies, our cities, our daily lives. Heart disease grows in silence. It builds layer by layer until it stops a person in the middle of an ordinary day. Cancer rises from within the cells themselves, as if the body forgets its own rules. Respiratory diseases enter with the air we breathe and remind us that every breath is a connection to the world around us. Metabolic disorders shift the balance of energy, slowly but relentlessly. And infectious diseases, ancient and adaptive, continue to evolve alongside our modern society. These are not just medical terms. They are human stories. Stories of bodies that fight, stories of systems that weaken, stories of danger that grows unnoticed, and stories of knowledge that can help us understand what is happening inside us. This series is not meant to frighten. It is meant to illuminate. It is meant to reveal how these 5 forces shape our lives, how they influence the world we live in, how they quietly reshape the future. Each chapter is a journey into the hidden architecture of the human body, into places we never see, but that determine everything, into processes that unfold every second, into battles that often remain invisible. This is a story about life, about its fragility, about its resilience, and about the 5 forces that challenge it more than anything else today. To understand the world we live in, we must understand these forces. They affect every one of us. They are here. They never stop. Let us begin. Part 1. Heart disease, the silent global killer. In the quiet architecture of the human body, the heart is the engine that never rests. It beats from the first moments of life until the very last, pushing blood through a vast network of vessels that reach every cell, every organ, every corner of the body. And yet, within this system built for endurance, a slow and silent threat begins to take shape long before it is ever noticed. It does not strike suddenly. It does not reveal itself with early warnings. Instead, it grows quietly, hidden beneath routine, habit, and the familiar rhythm of everyday life. Heart disease begins in the arteries, the branching pathways that carry oxygen and nutrients to the body. These vessels are meant to be smooth, flexible, unobstructed. But over time, small changes begin to appear. Tiny particles of fat settle along the inner walls. At first, they are harmless, almost invisible, but they accumulate, slowly, relentlessly. Layer after layer, the walls thicken, the passage narrows. Blood moves with greater difficulty, and the heart, forced to push harder, begins to strain against resistance it was never designed to face. This process is known as atherosclerosis. But most people never hear the word until it is too late. It is a condition that develops quietly, often over decades. There is no pain as the arteries narrow, no warning as the walls stiffen, no signal that the heart is working harder than before. The body adapts, compensates, adjusts. It finds new ways to keep blood flowing, even as the pathways tighten. And because the body is so good at adapting, the danger remains hidden. For many, the first sign of heart disease is not a symptom, it is an event. A sudden pressure in the chest, a wave of dizziness, a collapse. A heart attack is not the beginning of the story. It is the final chapter of a long, silent progression that began years earlier, unnoticed and unchallenged. But how does this silent threat take hold? It begins with the small forces that shape everyday life. Stress that lingers for years, tightening the body from the inside. Diets heavy in salt, sugar, and unhealthy fats, slowly altering the chemistry of the blood. Long hours spent sitting with too little movement to counterbalance the strain. Smoking, which damages the arteries with every breath. alcohol, which burdens the heart over time, genetics, which can predetermine vulnerability long before adulthood, age, which gradually changes the structure and elasticity of the cardiovascular system. Each factor adds weight. Each factor pushes the body closer to risk. For some, the danger is inherited, a family history that shapes the path long before symptoms appear. For others, it is the environment, polluted air, limited access to healthy food, long work hours, chronic stress. And for many, it is a combination of all these forces merging into a single powerful threat that grows quietly beneath the surface. The early stages of heart disease are almost always invisible. The arteries narrow by millimeters, then fractions of millimeters. The heart works slightly harder, then harder still. Blood pressure rises slowly, almost imperceptibly. Cholesterol levels shift. Inflammation increases. But none of these changes feel dramatic. None of them feel urgent. They are small adjustments absorbed by the body without complaint. This is what makes heart disease so dangerous. It does not demand attention. It does not force a person to stop. It does not disrupt daily life until the damage is already significant. It hides behind routine. It grows in the quiet spaces of life. And it waits. By the time symptoms appear, shortness of breath, chest discomfort, fatigue, the arteries may already be severely narrowed. The heart may already be struggling. The system may already be on the edge of failure. And yet even then, many people dismiss the signs. They attribute them to stress, to age, to exhaustion. They continue with their routines, unaware that the body is signaling a crisis. Heart disease is not a sudden enemy. It is a slow, patient force that shapes itself around the life a person lives. It grows through habits, through environment, through time. It is a threat built not from a single moment, but from thousands of small choices repeated over years. This is the beginning of the story. The silent rise of a global killer that moves without sound, without urgency, without warning. A threat that hides in the ordinary, a danger that grows in the familiar, and a reminder that even the quietest forces can reshape the course of a life. As heart disease progresses, the body continues its quiet struggle to adapt. The arteries narrow further, the walls stiffen, blood flow weakens. The heart, once efficient and resilient, begins to work harder with every beat. It thickens in response, building muscle the way an athlete might. But this growth is not strength, it is strain. It is the body's attempt to survive under pressure it was never meant to endure. Inside the arteries, the fatty deposits that once seemed insignificant now form hardened plaques. These plaques can crack or rupture, exposing their contents to the bloodstream. The body reacts instantly, sending platelets to seal the wound. But this natural defense can create a clot large enough to block the artery entirely. When that happens, blood flow stops. Oxygen disappears. And the heart muscle, deprived of what it needs to survive, begins to die. This is the moment most people recognize, the heart attack. But it is only the visible end of a long, invisible journey. The progression of heart disease is shaped by forces that often feel ordinary. Stress, for example, is not just an emotion. It is a physical state. When stress becomes chronic, the body releases hormones that raise blood pressure, increase inflammation, and strain the cardiovascular system. Over years, this constant tension becomes a silent sculptor, reshaping the heart and vessels in ways that are rarely noticed until the damage is done. Diet plays a similar role. Foods high in unhealthy fats, salt, and sugar gradually alter the chemistry of the blood. Cholesterol levels rise. Blood pressure increases. Inflammation spreads. These changes do not feel dramatic. They do not cause immediate pain. But they create the conditions in which heart disease thrives, slowly, quietly, predictably. Inactivity is another force that shapes the progression. The human body was built for movement, yet modern life often demands stillness. Hours spent sitting at desks, in cars, on couches, each day blending into the next. Without regular activity, the heart weakens. Blood vessels lose flexibility, metabolism slows, and the risk grows. Smoking accelerates the process dramatically. With every inhale, chemicals enter the bloodstream, damaging the lining of the arteries and making it easier for plaques to form. Over time, the vessels become narrower, stiffer, more fragile. The heart must work harder to push blood through pathways that no longer respond the way they once did. Alcohol, too, can shape the progression. While small amounts may have minimal impact, Long-term heavy use places significant strain on the heart. It weakens the muscle, disrupts rhythm, and contributes to conditions that increase the risk of cardiovascular events. Genetics weave through all of this like an invisible thread. Some people inherit a higher likelihood of developing heart disease. Their arteries may be more prone to plaque buildup. Their cholesterol levels may rise more easily. Their blood pressure may climb with age. But even for those with genetic risk, the environment and lifestyle play powerful roles in determining how the story unfolds. As heart disease advances, the symptoms become harder to ignore. Shortness of breath during simple tasks, fatigue that lingers, chest discomfort that comes and goes, swelling in the legs, irregular heartbeat. These signs are the body's way of signaling that the system is under strain, but many people dismiss them, attributing them to age, stress, or exhaustion. The warning signs blend into the background of daily life, unnoticed until they become impossible to ignore. And yet, despite the scale of the threat, the progression of heart disease is not fixed. It can be slowed. It can be influenced. It can be shaped by choices made over time. Regular physical activity strengthens the heart and improves circulation. Balanced eating patterns support healthy cholesterol and blood pressure levels. Avoiding tobacco removes one of the most powerful triggers of cardiovascular damage. Managing stress protects the body from the long-term strain that slowly erodes resilience. And routine medical checkups allow early signs to be detected before they become irreversible. These are not dramatic interventions. They are steady, consistent habits that support long-term health. They do not eliminate risk entirely, nothing can, but they shift the balance. They give the heart room to recover, to endure, to continue its work with less strain. Heart disease remains the world's leading cause of death not because it is unstoppable, but because it is often unseen. It hides behind routine. It grows in the quiet spaces of life, and it strikes when least expected. Understanding how it progresses, how it shapes the body, how it responds to time and habit, is one of the most powerful tools a person can have. This is the second half of the story. A deeper look into a threat that moves without sound. A reminder that even the slowest forces can reshape the course of a life. And a call to awareness, because the more we understand the silent killer, the more power we have to face it. Part 2. Cancer, the unpredictable enemy. In the vast landscape of human disease, few threats inspire as much fear, uncertainty, and silence as cancer. It is not a single illness, but a family of conditions, each with its own behavior, its own rhythm, its own way of reshaping the body from within. Unlike infections, it does not come from outside. Unlike injuries, it does not arrive in a single moment. Cancer begins in the most familiar place of all, the cells that make up the human body. Every second, millions of cells divide, repair, and renew. It is a process so constant, so precise, that we rarely think about it. But within this delicate machinery, mistakes can occur. A single cell may copy its DNA imperfectly. A gene may mutate. A repair mechanism may fail. Most of the time, the body catches these errors and corrects them. But sometimes, a damaged cell slips through the system unnoticed, and sometimes, that cell begins to grow in ways it was never meant to grow. This is where cancer begins. Not with pain, not with symptoms, but with a single cell that refuses to follow the rules. A cell that divides when it should rest. A cell that ignores the signals that keep the body in balance. A cell that becomes something new, something unpredictable, something dangerous. At first, the change is microscopic, invisible. A cluster of abnormal cells forms, too small to detect, too small to cause harm. But cancer is patient. It grows quietly, layer by layer, feeding on the body's own resources. It does not spread evenly. It does not follow a predictable path. Some cancers grow slowly, taking years to become noticeable. Others move with alarming speed, dividing rapidly, invading nearby tissues, pushing aside the structures that once held them in place. What makes cancer so unpredictable is its ability to evolve. As the abnormal cells multiply, they accumulate new mutations. Some of these changes make them grow faster. Others help them evade the immune system. Others allow them to break away from their original location and travel through the bloodstream or lymphatic system. When these wandering cells settle in distant organs, they form new tumors, a process known as metastasis. It is this ability to spread that makes cancer one of the most formidable enemies the human body can face. But how does cancer take hold in a person's life? The answer is complex. Genetics play a role. Some people inherit mutations that increase their risk. Environment matters too: exposure to radiation, chemicals, pollutants. Lifestyle influences the process: tobacco smoke, alcohol, diet, long-term inflammation. Age is a powerful factor, because the longer a person lives, the more chances there are for cellular mistakes to accumulate. But even with all these influences, cancer remains deeply unpredictable. Two people with similar risks may have entirely different outcomes. One may develop cancer early in life. Another may never develop it at all. This unpredictability is what makes cancer so difficult to understand. It does not follow a single pattern. It does not behave the same way in every person. It can remain silent for years, growing unnoticed, causing no pain, no discomfort, no warning. By the time symptoms appear, a lump, a persistent cough, unexplained fatigue, weight loss, the disease may already be advanced. And even then, the signs can be subtle, easily mistaken for something else. Cancer's early stages are often invisible because the body is remarkably resilient. It adapts, it compensates, it works around the growing tumor, maintaining function for as long as it can. The immune system may even fight the abnormal cells for years, keeping them under control without the person ever knowing. But eventually, the balance shifts. The tumor grows too large, the immune system weakens, the cancer finds new ways to evade detection, and the disease begins to reveal itself. What makes cancer especially challenging is that it is not driven by a single cause. It is shaped by time, by chance, by biology. It is influenced by the world a person lives in, the air they breathe, the food they eat, the stress they carry, the habits they repeat. It is shaped by the body itself, its strengths, its vulnerabilities, its history. And it is shaped by randomness, by the unpredictable nature of cellular mutation. Cancer is not a sudden enemy. It is a slow, evolving force that grows from within. It is a reminder that the body, for all its strength and complexity, is not infallible, and it is a testament to how fragile the balance of life can be, how a single cell, acting alone, can reshape the course of a life. This is the beginning of the story. The rise of an enemy that does not follow rules, a threat that grows in silence, a force that emerges from the very fabric of the human body, and a reminder that even the smallest changes can lead to the most profound consequences. As cancer grows, the body enters a silent struggle it never asked for. The abnormal cells, once confined to a single location, begin to push outward. They invade nearby tissues, weaving themselves into structures that were never meant to hold them. They steal nutrients, oxygen, and space. They disrupt the delicate balance that keeps organs functioning. And all the while, the person carrying this hidden threat may feel nothing at all. Cancer does not grow in a straight line. It does not follow a predictable pattern. Some tumors expand slowly, almost cautiously, taking years to reach a size that can be detected. Others move with alarming speed, dividing rapidly, overwhelming the body's defenses before it has time to respond. This unpredictability is one of cancer's most defining traits. It adapts, it evolves, it learns. As the tumor grows, it begins to influence the body in subtle ways. It may release chemicals that suppress the immune system, making it harder for the body to recognize the threat. It may create its own blood vessels, drawing in nutrients to fuel its expansion. It may alter the surrounding tissue, softening barriers that once held it in place. And eventually, it may break free. When cancer cells detach from the original tumor, they enter the bloodstream or the lymphatic system, the body's internal highways. Most of these wandering cells will not survive the journey, but some will. They travel to distant organs, settle in new environments, and begin to grow again. This process, known as metastasis, is what makes cancer so dangerous. A tumor that begins in one place can quietly establish colonies throughout the body, each one a new threat, each one a new challenge. For the person living with cancer, the experience is often shaped by uncertainty. Symptoms may appear slowly: fatigue that lingers, pain that comes and goes, changes in appetite, unexplained weight loss. Or they may appear suddenly, forcing the person to confront a reality they never expected. But even when symptoms emerge, they are not always clear. Cancer can mimic other conditions. It can hide behind familiar discomforts. It can remain invisible until it reaches an advanced stage. The emotional impact is just as profound. Cancer is not only a physical disease, it is a psychological one. It brings fear, confusion, questions without answers. It forces people to confront their own vulnerability, their own mortality. It reshapes families, routines, futures. And because it is so unpredictable, it often leaves people feeling powerless. Yet, despite its complexity, cancer is not entirely beyond influence. While no one can eliminate risk completely, certain choices can reduce the likelihood of cancer developing or progressing. Avoiding tobacco removes one of the most powerful triggers of cellular damage. Limiting alcohol reduces long-term strain on the body. Protecting the skin from excessive sun exposure helps prevent harmful mutations. Maintaining balanced eating patterns and regular physical activity supports overall health, and routine medical checkups allow potential issues to be identified early when they are most manageable. These principles do not guarantee safety. Nothing can. Cancer is shaped by chance as much as by biology. But they shift the odds. They strengthen the body's natural defenses. They create an environment less favorable to the mutations that drive cancer's growth. What makes cancer especially challenging is that it is not a single enemy. It is many. Each type behaves differently. Each responds differently to the body's defenses. Each evolves in its own way. Some cancers remain localized for years. Others spread quickly. Some respond well to treatment. Others resist every attempt to stop them. This diversity is what makes cancer one of the most complex diseases known to medicine. But understanding its nature, how it begins, how it grows, how it spreads, gives people a measure of clarity in the face of uncertainty. It reveals the hidden processes that shape the disease. It shows how the body fights, adapts, and endures. And it reminds us that even in the presence of a powerful enemy, knowledge remains one of the strongest tools we have. This is the second half of the story. A deeper look into a disease that evolves from within. A reminder that cancer is not a single moment, but a long, shifting journey, and a testament to the resilience of the human body, a system that continues to fight even when the enemy is one of its own. Part 3. Respiratory diseases. The air we breathe. Every moment of life begins with a breath. It is the first action a newborn takes, and the last action a person makes at the end of their life. Breathing is so constant, so automatic, that we rarely think about it. The lungs expand, the chest rises, air flows in, carrying oxygen that fuels every cell in the body. And yet, within this simple, rhythmic act lies one of the most fragile systems we possess. A system vulnerable to the world around us in ways we often fail to see. Respiratory diseases begin in the airways, the branching passages that guide air from the outside world into the depths of the lungs. These passages are lined with delicate tissues, thin membranes, and microscopic structures designed to filter, warm, and protect. But they are also exposed, directly, continuously, to everything carried in the air: dust, smoke, chemicals, pollutants, viruses, bacteria. The lungs are the only internal organ that opens itself to the environment with every breath. And that vulnerability shapes the story of respiratory disease. At first, the changes are subtle: a slight irritation in the throat, a cough that lingers, a feeling of tightness after climbing stairs. These signs are easy to ignore, easy to dismiss as fatigue, weather, or a passing cold. But deep inside the lungs, small shifts may already be taking place. The airways may be narrowing, the tissues may be inflamed, the tiny air sacs, the alveoli, may be losing their elasticity, and the body, as always, adapts. It works harder to pull in the same amount of air. It compensates for the narrowing passages. It adjusts to the reduced oxygen. And because the body is so good at adapting, the danger remains hidden. Respiratory diseases come in many forms. Chronic conditions like asthma and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease slowly reshape the airways over years. Infections like pneumonia and influenza strike suddenly, filling the lungs with fluid and inflammation. Environmental exposures, smoke, dust, industrial chemicals, gradually erode the delicate structures that make breathing possible. and in some cases the damage is irreversible. What makes respiratory diseases especially insidious is that they often begin long before symptoms become noticeable. The lungs have a remarkable capacity to endure stress. They can function with reduced capacity. They can compensate for damaged areas. They can continue working even when large portions are compromised. But this resilience comes at a cost. By the time a person realizes something is wrong, the damage may already be significant. The air we breathe plays a central role in this story. In cities, pollution from traffic and industry fills the air with particles that irritate and inflame the lungs. In rural areas, dust, smoke, and agricultural chemicals can have similar effects. Indoors, mold, fumes, and poor ventilation create environments that strain the respiratory system day after day. And for those who smoke, or who live around those who do, the lungs are exposed to thousands of chemicals with every inhale, each one contributing to long-term damage. Infections add another layer of complexity. Viruses and bacteria can enter the body with a single breath, settling deep in the lungs and triggering inflammation that disrupts the flow of oxygen. Some infections resolve quickly. Others linger, leaving behind scarring or weakened tissue. And in vulnerable individuals, the very young, the elderly, those with chronic conditions, respiratory infections can become life-threatening. Genetics also play a role. Some people are born with airways that are more reactive, more sensitive, more prone to inflammation. Others inherit conditions that affect the structure or function of the lungs. But even for those with genetic risk, the environment remains a powerful force. The air a person breathes throughout their life shapes the health of their lungs in ways that are often invisible until years later. As respiratory diseases progress, the symptoms become harder to ignore. Shortness of breath during simple tasks, a cough that never fully goes away, wheezing, chest tightness, fatigue. These signs reflect the growing struggle within the lungs, the narrowing airways, the inflamed tissues, the reduced oxygen exchange. But even then, many people adapt. They slow down, they avoid exertion, they change their routines, and the disease continues to advance quietly. The lungs are resilient, but they are not invincible. They can endure years of strain, but they cannot escape the consequences of constant exposure. They can recover from infections, but repeated inflammation leaves scars. They can adapt to reduced capacity, but only for so long. And when the balance finally tips, the body feels the full weight of the struggle, breath by breath. This is the beginning of the story, the rise of diseases shaped by the air we breathe. A reminder that the world around us enters our bodies with every inhale, and a testament to how something as simple, as essential, as breathing can become one of the greatest vulnerabilities of human life. As respiratory diseases progress, the struggle within the lungs becomes more visible, more tangible, more difficult to ignore. What began as a slight irritation or a lingering cough slowly transforms into a daily battle for air. The lungs, once open and resilient, begin to feel tight, heavy, resistant. Breathing, the most natural act of life, becomes something that requires effort, concentration, and sometimes courage. Inside the airways, inflammation may continue to build. The tissues swell, the passages narrow. Mucus accumulates, blocking the flow of air. The tiny muscles surrounding the bronchi tighten, constricting the pathways even further. For someone with chronic respiratory disease, this narrowing can feel like trying to breathe through a straw. Every inhale shallow, every exhale incomplete. Deep in the lungs, the alveoli, the microscopic air sacs responsible for exchanging oxygen and carbon dioxide, may begin to lose their elasticity. In conditions like chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, these air sacs can collapse or merge into larger, less efficient spaces. The surface area for oxygen exchange shrinks. The body receives less oxygen with every breath, and the lungs, once capable of supporting intense physical activity, now struggle with even the simplest tasks. The progression is rarely sudden. It unfolds slowly, shaped by years of exposure, habit, and environment. For someone who has lived with polluted air, the damage may accumulate grain by grain, particle by particle. For someone who has smoked for decades, the chemicals in the smoke gradually erode the delicate structures of the lungs. For someone with asthma, Repeated episodes of inflammation may leave behind scars that stiffen the airways over time. And for those who have endured repeated infections, each illness may leave a mark, a patch of weakened tissue, a lingering vulnerability. As the disease advances, the symptoms begin to shape daily life. Shortness of breath becomes a constant companion. Tasks that once felt effortless, climbing stairs, walking to the store, carrying groceries, now require pauses, planning, patience. A persistent cough interrupts conversations, meals, sleep. Fatigue settles into the body, not from lack of rest, but from the simple act of breathing. The body must work harder to draw in the same amount of air, and that effort consumes energy. For many, the emotional weight is just as heavy as the physical one. Breath is life. When it becomes difficult, the world feels smaller, more fragile. Anxiety can rise with every episode of breathlessness. Fear can accompany every wheeze, every tightness, every moment when the lungs refuse to cooperate. And because respiratory diseases often progress slowly, people adapt without realizing it. They move less. They avoid exertion. They change their routines. They shrink their world to match their breath. Infections become more dangerous as the lungs weaken. A simple cold can turn into pneumonia. A seasonal virus can trigger severe inflammation. The body, already struggling to maintain oxygen levels, may not have the reserves to fight off new threats. For the elderly, for those with chronic conditions, for those with compromised immune systems, respiratory infections can become life-threatening. Yet despite the scale of the challenge, the progression of respiratory disease is not entirely beyond influence. While no one can eliminate risk completely, certain choices can reduce the strain on the lungs and support long-term respiratory health. Avoiding tobacco removes one of the most powerful sources of lung damage. Reducing exposure to pollutants both indoors and outdoors helps protect the delicate tissues of the airways. Maintaining balanced eating patterns and regular physical activity supports overall health and strengthens the body's resilience. And routine medical checkups allow early signs of respiratory issues to be identified before they become severe. These principles do not reverse all damage. They do not guarantee safety, but they shift the balance. They give the lungs space to recover, to endure, to function more effectively. They help the body navigate a world where the air itself can be a source of harm. What makes respiratory diseases especially complex is that they are shaped by forces both within and beyond a person's control. Genetics may influence sensitivity, environment may determine exposure, lifestyle may shape long-term risk, and chance, the unpredictable nature of infection, pollution, or inflammation, may play a role as well. The lungs exist at the intersection of the body and the world, and their health reflects that connection. Understanding how respiratory diseases progress, how they reshape the airways, how they influence the body, how they respond to time and environment, offers clarity in a landscape often defined by uncertainty. It reveals the hidden struggle within the lungs. It shows how the body adapts, compensates, and endures. And it reminds us that breathing, the simplest act of life, is also one of the most vulnerable. This is the second half of the story. A deeper look into diseases shaped by the air we breathe. A reminder that the world around us enters our bodies with every inhale, and a testament to the resilience of the human lungs. Organs that fight, breath by breath, even when the air itself becomes an enemy. Part 4. Diabetes, the modern metabolic crisis. In the quiet machinery of the human body, glucose is the fuel that keeps everything running. Every thought, every movement, every heartbeat depends on it. The body has evolved a precise system to manage this fuel, a balance between insulin, the hormone that helps cells absorb glucose, and the bloodstream that carries it. For most of human history, this system worked flawlessly, but in the modern world, something has changed. A slow, silent crisis has emerged, one that reshapes the body from within, often long before a person realizes anything is wrong. Diabetes begins not with pain, not with sudden symptoms, but with subtle shifts in how the body handles energy. At first, the cells become slightly less responsive to insulin. They resist its signal, forcing the pancreas to produce more. The body compensates, it adapts, it pushes harder to maintain balance, And because this adaptation is so effective, the early stages of diabetes remain invisible. This condition, insulin resistance, is the quiet beginning of a long metabolic struggle. It develops slowly, shaped by genetics, environment, and lifestyle. Diets high in sugar and refined carbohydrates can overwhelm the system. Long periods of inactivity reduce the body's ability to use glucose efficiently. Chronic stress alters hormones that influence metabolism. Excess body weight, especially around the abdomen, increases the strain on insulin pathways. And age, as always, plays its part, gradually reducing the body's metabolic flexibility. For years, the pancreas manages to keep up. It produces more insulin, pushing against the growing resistance. Blood sugar levels remain normal. The person feels healthy. Life continues unchanged. But beneath the surface, the system is under increasing pressure. The pancreas is working harder than ever. The cells are becoming more resistant. The balance is slipping. Eventually, the pancreas can no longer keep pace. Insulin production falters. Blood sugar begins to rise. At first, the increase is small, barely noticeable in daily life. But over time, the levels climb higher. The body struggles to move glucose into the cells. The bloodstream becomes overloaded, and the person, still unaware of the internal shift, continues with their routines. This is the moment when prediabetes emerges, a warning sign that often goes unnoticed. There are no dramatic symptoms, no sudden changes, just a slow drift toward imbalance. The body is signaling that the system is under strain. But the signal is quiet, easy to ignore, easy to miss. As blood sugar continues to rise, the effects begin to spread. Glucose, unable to enter the cells efficiently, remains in the bloodstream, where it begins to cause damage. It irritates the lining of blood vessels. It disrupts the function of nerves. It alters the chemistry of the kidneys. It affects the eyes, the skin, the immune system. But these changes are gradual. They unfold over years. And because they are slow, they rarely feel urgent. This is what makes diabetes so dangerous. It is not a sudden enemy. It is a slow, persistent force that reshapes the body from within. It grows quietly, hidden behind routine, habit, and the familiar rhythm of daily life. And by the time symptoms appear, increased thirst, frequent urination, fatigue, blurred vision, the metabolic system may already be deeply compromised. Type 2 diabetes, the most common form, is shaped by a combination of factors. Genetics can predispose a person to insulin resistance. Environment can influence diet, activity, and stress. Lifestyle can accelerate or slow the progression. But even with these influences, diabetes remains deeply individual. Two people with similar risks may have entirely different outcomes. One may develop diabetes early in life. Another may never develop it at all. Type 1 diabetes, though far less common, follows a different path. It is an autoimmune condition in which the body's own immune system attacks the insulin-producing cells of the pancreas. The onset is often sudden, dramatic, unmistakable. But even here, the early stages are invisible, the immune system quietly dismantling the body's ability to regulate glucose long before symptoms appear. What unites all forms of diabetes is the disruption of balance. The delicate equilibrium between insulin, glucose, and the cells that depend on them. When this balance falters, the entire body feels the consequences. Energy becomes harder to access. Organs work under strain. The bloodstream carries more glucose than it can safely handle. And the person, often unaware of the internal struggle, continues with life as usual. Diabetes is not a single moment. It is a long unfolding story. A story shaped by biology, environment, time, and chance. It is a reminder that the systems we rely on most are also the most fragile, and it is a testament to how quietly a crisis can grow when it begins at the cellular level, hidden from sight, hidden from awareness, hidden within the very fuel that keeps us alive. This is the beginning of the story. The rise of a modern metabolic crisis. A threat shaped by the world we live in, the food we eat, the routines we follow, and a reminder that even the smallest shifts in the body's internal balance can reshape the course of a life. As diabetes progresses, the body enters a long, quiet struggle that touches nearly every organ, every system, every corner of human physiology. What began as a subtle shift in how the body handles glucose slowly becomes a widespread disruption, a metabolic imbalance that reshapes daily life in ways both visible and invisible. The bloodstream carries more sugar than it can safely manage. The cells, starved of the energy they need, begin to falter, and the organs that depend on a stable internal environment feel the strain. Inside the blood vessels, the elevated glucose acts like a slow-moving corrosive. It irritates the delicate lining of the arteries, making them more vulnerable to damage. Over time, this irritation leads to inflammation, thickening, and narrowing of the vessel walls. The blood becomes harder to push through. The heart works under greater pressure. The risk of cardiovascular complications rises, but these changes unfold quietly, often without symptoms, hidden beneath the surface of everyday life. In the nerves, high glucose disrupts the signals that carry information between the brain and the body. At first, the changes are subtle, a tingling in the feet, a slight numbness in the hands. But as the imbalance continues, the nerves weaken, sensation fades, pain becomes unpredictable. The body loses its ability to detect injuries, temperature changes, or pressure. And because the signals are distorted, even small wounds can go unnoticed, leading to complications that develop silently. The kidneys, responsible for filtering waste from the blood, face their own battle. They work harder to remove the excess glucose, straining their delicate structures. Over time, this constant pressure can weaken their ability to function. Protein may begin to leak into the urine. Fluid balance may shift, and the kidneys, once resilient, may slowly lose their capacity to keep the body in equilibrium. The eyes are equally vulnerable. The tiny blood vessels that nourish the retina can become damaged by prolonged exposure to high glucose. They may leak, swell, or close off entirely. New fragile vessels may form in their place, but these vessels are prone to bleeding. Vision becomes blurred. Dark spots appear, and in severe cases the damage can lead to permanent loss of sight. Yet even here, the early stages are silent. No pain, no warning, just gradual change. The immune system, too, feels the impact. High glucose weakens the body's ability to fight infections. Wounds heal more slowly. Minor illnesses linger. The skin becomes more susceptible to bacterial and fungal infections. And because the immune response is compromised, even small health issues can escalate into serious complications. For many people, the emotional weight of diabetes is as heavy as the physical one. The disease demands constant awareness of food, of energy, of routine. It reshapes daily habits, influences decisions, alters the rhythm of life. Fatigue becomes familiar, concentration may fade, mood can shift with changes in blood sugar, and the knowledge that the disease is always present, always progressing, can create a sense of uncertainty that lingers in the background of every day. Yet despite its complexity, diabetes is not entirely beyond influence. While no one can eliminate risk completely, certain choices can help reduce the strain on the body and support long-term metabolic health. Balanced eating patterns help stabilize blood sugar levels. Regular physical activity improves the body's ability to use glucose efficiently. Avoiding tobacco reduces the risk of cardiovascular complications. Managing stress supports hormonal balance, and routine medical checkups allow early signs of complications to be identified before they become severe. These principles do not reverse all damage. They do not guarantee safety, but they shift the balance. They give the body space to recover, to adapt, to endure. They help slow the progression of a disease that thrives in silence. What makes diabetes especially challenging is that it is shaped by forces both within and beyond a person's control. Genetics may influence susceptibility. Environment may shape diet, activity, and stress. Lifestyle may accelerate or slow the progression. And chance, the unpredictable nature of biology, may play a role as well. Diabetes exists at the intersection of the body and the world, and its progression reflects that connection. Understanding how diabetes evolves, how it reshapes the bloodstream, the nerves, the organs, offers clarity in a landscape often defined by uncertainty. It reveals the hidden struggle within the body. It shows how the metabolic system adapts, compensates, and endures, and it reminds us that even the smallest shifts in the body's internal balance can have profound consequences. This is the second half of the story, a deeper look into a modern metabolic crisis, a reminder that the systems we rely on most are also the most vulnerable, and a testament to the resilience of the human body, a system that continues to fight even when the fuel that sustains it becomes a source of harm. Part 5. Infectious diseases. Old threats in a modern world. For most of human history, infectious diseases shaped the rise and fall of civilizations. They moved through cities like storms, crossed continents with armies and travelers, and left behind silence where life once thrived. In the modern world, with advanced medicine, clean water, and global communication, it is easy to believe that these ancient threats have been defeated, but the truth is far more complex. Infectious diseases never disappeared. They adapted, they evolved, and in a world more connected than ever before, they remain one of humanity's oldest and most persistent enemies. Infectious diseases begin with a simple act, contact, a breath, a touch, a shared surface, a moment of proximity. Viruses, bacteria, parasites, and fungi, microscopic organisms invisible to the naked eye, move from one host to another, searching for a place to survive, to multiply, to spread. Some are harmless, some are mild, and some, under the right conditions, can reshape the world. The story often begins quietly. A person inhales a virus carried in the air. A bacterium enters through a small cut. A parasite travels through contaminated water. At first, the body may not notice. The immune system responds silently, deploying cells and chemicals to contain the invader. For a time, the balance holds. But if the pathogen is strong enough, or the immune system is weakened, the infection begins to take root. Inside the body, the invader multiplies. Viruses hijack cells, forcing them to produce copies of themselves. Bacteria divide rapidly, releasing toxins that disrupt normal function. Parasites move through tissues, feeding, growing, spreading. The body responds with inflammation, fever, fatigue, ancient defense mechanisms designed to slow the infection. But these responses, while protective, also create the symptoms people recognize: coughing, congestion, pain, weakness. Some infections remain localized, others spread through the bloodstream, reaching organs far from the point of entry. And some pathogens have evolved to evade the immune system entirely, hiding within cells or altering their structure to avoid detection. These infections can linger for weeks, months, or even years, quietly damaging the body while the person continues with daily life. What makes infectious diseases especially dangerous in the modern world is the speed at which they can travel. A virus that once took months to cross a continent can now circle the globe in a matter of hours. Airplanes, ships, highways. The same systems that connect humanity also connect the pathogens that move among us. A single infected person can unknowingly spread disease across cities, countries, continents. And because many infections begin with mild or invisible symptoms, the spread often occurs long before anyone realizes what is happening. Urbanization adds another layer of complexity. Dense populations create ideal conditions for transmission. Crowded public spaces, shared transportation, close living quarters. All of these environments allow pathogens to move quickly from person to person. In some regions, limited access to healthcare, clean water, or sanitation increases the risk even further, creating pockets where infectious diseases can thrive. Climate change also plays a role. As temperatures rise, the habitats of insects that carry disease, mosquitoes, ticks, fleas, expand into new regions. Diseases once confined to specific climates now appear in places where they were previously unknown. Floods, droughts, and extreme weather events disrupt infrastructure, displace communities, and create conditions where infections can spread rapidly. Despite these challenges, the human body remains remarkably resilient. The immune system is a complex, adaptive defense network capable of recognizing and responding to countless threats. It learns from past infections. It remembers. It adapts. But even the strongest immune system can be overwhelmed by a pathogen that spreads too quickly, mutates too rapidly, or enters the body in large numbers. Vaccines, sanitation, antibiotics, and antiviral medications have transformed the landscape of infectious disease. They have saved millions of lives. They have reduced the spread of once devastating illnesses. But these tools are not perfect. Some pathogens mutate, rendering treatments less effective. Some bacteria develop resistance to antibiotics. Some viruses evolve new variants that spread more easily or evade immunity. And in regions with limited access to healthcare, even preventable infections can become deadly. The early stages of infectious disease are often invisible. A person may feel tired but attribute it to stress. A cough may seem like a minor irritation. A fever may come and go. And because these symptoms are common, familiar, ordinary, the infection continues to spread unnoticed. By the time the true nature of the illness becomes clear, dozens or hundreds of others may already be infected. This is what makes infectious diseases so dangerous. They do not always announce themselves. They do not always reveal their presence until the spread is well underway. They move quietly, invisibly, through the spaces where people live, work, and gather. And they remind us that even in a world of advanced technology, humanity remains deeply connected to the microscopic world that surrounds us. This is the beginning of the story, the return of old threats in a modern world, a reminder that the smallest organisms can have the greatest impact, and a testament to the delicate balance between human life and the unseen forces that move through the air we breathe, the water we drink, and the world we share. As infectious diseases progress, the invisible battle inside the body intensifies. What began as a single invading organism becomes a count-neck struggle between pathogen and host, a contest of speed, adaptation, and survival. The immune system deploys its defenses, releasing waves of cells and chemicals designed to contain the threat. Fever rises, inflammation spreads, energy drains. These reactions, though uncomfortable, are signs of the body's attempt to regain control. But some pathogens are relentless. They multiply faster than the immune system can respond. They hide within cells. They alter their structure. They evade detection. And the infection deepens. Inside the lungs, viruses can fill the airways with fluid and inflammation, making each breath a challenge. In the bloodstream, bacteria can release toxins that disrupt organs far from the original site of infection. In the intestines, parasites can damage the lining that absorbs nutrients, weakening the body from within. And in severe cases, the immune system itself can become overwhelmed, triggering a cascade of reactions that threaten the body's stability. The symptoms of advanced infection vary widely. High fever, persistent cough, severe fatigue, muscle pain, difficulty breathing, confusion, dehydration. But these signs do not always appear immediately. Some infections progress silently, spreading through tissues long before the person realizes something is wrong. Others strike suddenly, overwhelming the body in a matter of hours. And because the early stages often resemble common illnesses, the true danger may remain hidden until the infection is well established. For many people, the emotional impact of infectious disease is as significant as the physical one. Illness brings uncertainty about the cause, the severity, the outcome. It disrupts routines, isolates individuals, reshapes daily life. Fear can spread as quickly as the pathogen itself, especially when the illness affects entire communities. And in a world where information moves rapidly, confusion and misinformation can amplify that fear, making it harder to understand what is truly happening. In some cases, infectious diseases do not remain confined to individuals. They spread through families, workplaces, neighborhoods. Outbreaks emerge, clusters form. And when the conditions are right, dense populations, limited healthcare, high mobility, these outbreaks can grow into epidemics. In rare but devastating cases, they can escalate into pandemics, reshaping societies, economies, and the course of history. The modern world, for all its advancements, remains vulnerable to these large-scale events. Global travel allows pathogens to move across continents in hours. Urbanization creates environments where diseases can spread rapidly. Climate change expands the habitats of disease-carrying insects. And antibiotic resistance, driven by decades of overuse, has created bacteria that no longer respond to treatments once considered reliable. These factors combine to create a landscape where old threats can reemerge, and new threats can appear without warning. Yet, despite these challenges, humanity is not powerless. While no one can eliminate risk entirely, certain principles can reduce the spread of infectious diseases and support overall health. Clean water and sanitation remain among the most effective defenses. Good hygiene practices help limit transmission. Vaccination programs protect communities by reducing the number of susceptible individuals. Balanced eating patterns and regular physical activity support the immune system, and routine medical checkups allow infections to be identified early when they are most manageable. These measures do not guarantee safety. Pathogens evolve, conditions change, new threats emerge, but they shift the balance. They strengthen the body's natural defenses. They reduce the likelihood of widespread outbreaks, and they help communities respond more effectively when infections do occur. What makes infectious diseases especially complex is that they exist at the intersection of biology, environment, and society. They are shaped by the microscopic world, but their impact is felt on a global scale. They reveal the connections between individuals, communities, and nations, and they remind us that the health of one person can influence the health of many. Understanding how infectious diseases progress, how they spread, how they adapt, how they challenge the body, offers clarity in a world where uncertainty is inevitable. It reveals the hidden processes that shape illness. It shows how the immune system fights, learns, and endures. And it reminds us that even the smallest organisms can have the greatest impact. This is the second half of the story. A deeper look into old threats that continue to shape the modern world. A reminder that humanity's greatest vulnerabilities often come from the unseen, and a testament to the resilience of the human body, a system that continues to fight, breath by breath, against enemies too small to see but powerful enough to change the course of history. Conclusion. The journey through the 5 silent forces. We have reached the end of this journey. A journey through the hidden architecture of the human body. A journey through the forces that shape our health in ways we often do not see. Heart disease, cancer, respiratory illness, metabolic disruption, infectious threats that move quietly through our world. Each one reveals a different side of the same truth. The body is strong, but it is also fragile. It endures, but it is never invincible. These 5 forces are not distant ideas. They are part of everyday life. They influence the people we love. They shape the communities we live in. They remind us that health is not a guarantee. It is a balance that must be understood, respected, and protected. Knowledge does not remove the challenges, but it changes how we face them. When we understand what happens inside the body, we see the world differently. We recognize the signals. We notice the patterns. We understand the risks. And we appreciate the resilience that keeps us alive from one moment to the next. Thank you for listening. Thank you for giving your time to learn, to reflect, and to explore these stories with me. Your curiosity is what keeps this work alive. Your attention is what gives these topics meaning. If this series helped you understand something new, consider supporting it. Leave a like, share it with someone who might need it, join the conversation in the comments. Your voice helps this knowledge reach further. Your engagement helps these stories continue. This is not the end. It is only the beginning of a larger exploration of the human body, the world around us, and the forces that shape our lives. There is more to discover, more to understand, more to uncover. Until next time, stay curious, stay aware, and take care of the body that carries you through this world.